Hey internet, it's Phil. So recently I decided to watch Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency for the second time. If you haven't seen it, then I highly suggest you do, but be warned I am going to spoil like a lot of it here. If you have seen it, then I recommend giving it a second watch, because you'll really be able to appreciate how well crafted and tight the storytelling is. The second run through lets you really focus on the characters now that you're freed from the frenetic pacing and constantly trying to piece everything together. And it is in this spirit that, while watching it again, I realized every character on this show is a complete and total loser. And it's awesome. Lots of shows have quirky characters, usually in comedic roles, or flawed characters in more serious stories, but I don't think I've ever seen a show that went so far out of its way to make sure you understand that everyone involved is a huge dork. Even the characters that seem really cool at first are hiding neuroses that get exposed over the course of the season. This is cool because it feels like a lot of stories now are afraid to have characters who aren't perfect. Unless they're meant to be comic relief or their flaws are supposed to make them morally ambiguous, we only ever see their positive traits, and a lot of the time they're totally overqualified, as if the people making movies and TV are afraid we won't relate to a hero who isn't invincible. Now, there are times where this can work, a good example being John Wick. The character is essentially an unkillable god, but it's built into a story that not only has an interesting world to back it up, but also a strong emotional core that gives everything meaning. For every John Wick though, we have a bunch of action heroes that come off as really bland and that are basically defined by their skill set rather than being an actual character. It's easy to stop caring about them because the stakes are so low and nothing's pulling you in emotionally. The heroes in Dirk Gently are barely functioning humans. They have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and it makes you actually worry about them when they're in danger. Farrah Black is probably the closest to a traditional action hero in the main cast, but while she is a total badass, she's definitely a little crazy, and it makes her 1,000 times more endearing and relatable while not taking away from her ability. Dirk himself is a flamboyant, sensitive, and jumpy title character with no friends who can't fight. Bart is a cold-blooded killer who doesn't know how radios or hotels work. Friedkin is a deadshot who the American education system has horribly failed. Every character that in another story would have been cool but kind of dull has dimension and depth, because the story isn't worried about proving that they're cool to us. The Rowdy Three are terrifying and fun, but they're also sweet, and when confronted by Riggins, you can see their careless facade melt away and they have genuine emotion. Some of the characters do seem normal, but as the story itself gets weirder, their own quirks and idiosyncrasies start to come out. Estevez and Zimmerfield are probably the most grounded characters in the show at the start. However, in being the most stable, they're actually the most clueless for most of the season, even as they're gathering more and more evidence. The more they delve into the strange events around them, the less control they have, and the more they start to progress. After Zimmerfield's death, Estevez basically goes off the deep end, which is when he finally starts solving the case. It's not until he gives into the crazy that he starts to make some headway. Characters in Dirk who start out trying to hide their weirdness are constantly punished for rejecting it. There's no better illustration for this dynamic than Todd, Ken, and Amanda. Todd is nominally our viewpoint character, the everyman that's supposed to ease us into the fantastical world once Dirk enters it. It's a common archetype meant to give the viewer or reader an anchor to ground them, and as he struggles to keep his world normal, the show lets us think that's Todd's whole deal. But Todd is a loser too. In fact, he's arguably the worst character on the show that isn't in a murderous cult. We find out in episode 5 that Todd's sweet, calm demeanor is actually a front. He's a huge dick who drove his parents into poverty with a fake disease for his own profit, a move that is directly impacting his actually sick sister. His last group of friends was his band, and he sold all their stuff for money and lied about it. Todd's kind of awful, and though he's sort of trying to turn his life around, this revelation makes you doubt the moral high ground he's been trying to assume with Dirk this whole time. Todd wants us to think he's just a normal dude, but he's as messed up and weird as anyone. This is what makes him resist Dirk's attempts to get him involved in the case so much. Todd has carefully constructed a world in which he can pretend everything is fine, and Dirk disrupts that. Every time he tries to deny that bizarre things are happening to him, he gets hurt, or his stuff gets destroyed, or some dude's house gets burned down. Ken is a hacker who tends to work with some morally questionable people, but seems like a pretty normal dude too. He and Bart's conversations often mirror Dirk and Todd's directly, as they're both offered a window into the world of the Blackwing subjects. The difference between him and Todd is that though he naturally doesn't believe Bart's holistic worldview at first, Ken is much more eager to accept it and just lean into the crazy early on. He's much less precious about who he believes he is or what his world should be like, and because of this he's able to connect to Bart much quicker than Todd is to Dirk. As a result, their journey goes a lot smoother and he finds a destiny to fill his otherwise shallow life. Amanda starts out more outwardly weird, her disease making her a shut-in. Because her world is so much smaller and more stagnant than everyone else's, she revels in the strangeness of the case, wishing she could be more involved. She has this long simmering anger that the Rowdy Three give her an outlet for, and giving into it actually helps her illness. By eagerly accepting how crazy everything gets, Amanda's story becomes one of the happiest of the season, even after finding out her brother was a liar who took all her family's money. Everyone being a total nerd extends importantly to the villains as well. My favorite scene from season 1 of Dirk is hands down this one. Gordon Rimmer, the creepily and slightly bumbling but occasionally genuinely terrifying bad guy, finally has Dirk and Todd on the machine he's been after, and he begins his obligatory villain monologue thusly.
What is going on? Who are you guys? Did Patrick Spring hire you? If not, then what are you? Are you detectives? No, because you're a bellhop. You were at the hotel. And you You're who? What, the FBI?
No.
Then how does the FBI figure into this? Who shot Ned? How did you know that Farrah Black was gonna be in that apartment? I mean, what kind of crazy coincidence is that? Where's the kid? Where's my dog? Why did you burn down my house? Who has my dog right now? Is it the police? Did the police have my dog? Who beat up Ed and Zed? Was it your guys? Other guys? How many different sets of guys are in this situation? How does Patrick Spring be in two places at the same time?
Yeah, turns out he's just as confused as everyone else. Gordon's entire plan revolves around an inferiority complex. His soul used to occupy the body of a rock star, and he's trying to make a power play to take over his cult without really having the means. And so as the season goes on, we see that this dude who seemed so important and in control is actually kind of winging it. But, and this is important, he's no less threatening or villainous for it. He and his group, although often goofy, are still given weight and allowed to be menacing. But they're so much more interesting because they're given dimension and texture, and the admission that they're as in the dark as everyone else is a high point in the series. No one in this show is perfect. Every character we spend any real time with has layers and oddities, but because the show treats them all with respect and importance and never detracts from them or judges them, everyone is just who they are, and the show isn't concerned with the image of the characters. The end result is that besides just being more interesting, everyone in the show is really relatable. We all struggle to be taken seriously. We've all done things we're not proud of. We all worry we're not who we think we are. We all feel left out. We all get shot with harpoons. We all feel trapped in our bodies. We all struggle to connect to people. We all ignore what's most important. We all feel stupid or in the dark. That's Dirk Gently's big secret. Everyone's a loser. No one's normal. If you seem normal, it's only because you haven't had a chance to show how much of a loser you are yet. Dirk's world is especially odd, and the only way to survive in it is to stop pretending and just be your weird ass self. And when you do, you'll finally be recognized. You'll discover your inner badass. You'll find people who get you. You'll find meaning. You'll move forward. You'll stop being a dog. Almost everyone in Dirk's first season starts out alone, whether literally or figuratively. In finding each other, they find people to embrace the weirdest parts of them. The friends they make don't like them despite the fact that they're losers, but because of it, and because they're losers too. They overcome the things that are holding them back and rage against their limitations without having to compromise themselves with the storytelling. They're flawed and compelling in a way that very few shows have managed with such a large and varied cast. Which is why it's such a goddamn gut punch when the show fakes you out with that cool everyone is friends montage ending, followed by the actual ending in which everyone gets shot or captured or develops an illness they spent years faking. So everything worked out in the end. Or something. So hey, thanks for watching this video about a bunch of weird nerds. If you haven't seen Dirk Gently but somehow made it all the way through this, I hope you do check it out because it's so good and there's so much more to it than what I presented here. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know with a like or a comment, subscribe to see when new videos come out, and I will see you soon.